So this is a wall, but not the wall. Hi, I'm Ralph and welcome to The Ageless Runner. One of my subscribers asked about the wall, hitting the wall. And before I get into that and some of the strategies, if you enjoy running and haven't yet subscribed to my channel, please consider just hitting that subscribe icon down in the corner anytime during this video. Thank you so much. So what is the wall? Well, typically it's that point where you just seem like you run out of energy, where you can't continue on. It doesn't necessarily happen in running. It can happen in everyday life. If you're working hard, you might run out of energy. I always thought that jet lag is a great example of hitting the wall. You know, sometimes, recovering from a big time zone change might cause you to get really tired at certain points in the afternoon. And in running, hitting the wall is going to happen in long runs. Well, hopefully it doesn't happen, but if it's going to happen, it's typically maybe 3/4 to 2/3 of the way in the long run, where you just feel like you can't go on. You just feel like you can't carry on because you just don't have the energy. And there are some things you can do to prepare for that, and even during your run. And they typically fall into 3 areas: rest, fuel, and hydration. Now, I hit the wall recently. I not only hit it, I hit it hard, and I actually had to drop out of a 50K race I was trying. My issue was strictly rest. I was not fully recovered from a trail marathon, a hard trail marathon I'd done a few weeks before. Plus, I did not sleep well the night before this race, so I was just kind of dragging in the beginning, and I got to maybe a little over halfway through the race, and I just had to stop. So rest is really important. You want to make sure you go into your run or in your race well rested. Now, most training plans, if you're following maybe a marathon training plan or half marathon training plan, there is taper at the end of that, either a week or two, sometimes 3 weeks, and you need to decide for yourself if that's enough rest time for you. I'm going to put a couple links down below. One is from Hal Hignan, who's a well-respected running coach. He talks about running for seniors, but he comes from the standpoint that you're a regular runner where you run year round and you've got some fitness behind you. He says 2 weeks is plenty, but he really backs off and on the running in the last week before a race, where you get a lot more rest. Jeff Galloway, on the other hand, he kind of builds in a 3-week taper into his marathon training plan. I'll put a link down there below. But you need to decide how much rest you need. If you're like me, you're in your mid-60s, you need to make sure you get adequate rest, because we're going to tire more quickly. We need more rest. So make sure you go in your race well rested. So fuel is really the most important thing you need to consider, both prepping before the race and during the race. The rule of thumb is 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour, but you need to ingest that frequently throughout that hour. It's not all at once. I kind of break down fuel in a couple of categories, 3 categories. One is regular food, which might be energy bars, chews. I had a colleague that used to run marathons and would make jelly sandwiches on white bread and cut them into quarters and carry that during the marathon. So that's regular food. Then there are gels. There's several kinds of gels. There's the very thick gels that are kind of hypertonic, means they're very thick. They need water to dilute them. And there's isotonic gels that I carry. And then lastly, there's powders that you can mix in with your water. Tailwind Endurance and Hammer Heat are 2 that I have used. Those are all different types of fuels. They both have pros and cons. Whatever you decide to use, do not change it on race day. In other words, don't do all your training with gels and then on race day decide to bring energy bars. You're just asking for trouble for your stomach. Now, if you use food like energy bars or gummies and things like that, you want to be careful not to consume too much an hour. In other words, don't go too far above that 60, otherwise you could get some stomach upset. But kind of shoot for that 40 to 60 range in your fueling during a run. Now, the third category is hydration, water. So obviously we need water for hydration. How much do you need? Well, there's no set number. It depends on your level of fitness, the environmental conditions of the day, is it hot or humid, how many clothes you're wearing, how hard is the run. But general rule of thumb is 6 to 8 ounces every 15 to 20 minutes. So kind of keep that in mind and make sure you get that throughout your run. But there's really 2 aspects to water. One, of course, is hydration and making sure you don't get dehydrated. But the other one is you need water to process that food you're eating, especially if you're eating food. If you're eating energy bars or sandwiches, you need water to dilute it. You need water to dissolve it and help that process through your intestines and get that energy into your body. You get enough water, that food's going to lay in your stomach, not do you any good, maybe even upset your stomach and give you all kinds of problems. So you need water for hydration and for the metabolic processes to process that food and energy you're trying to get into your body. And one thing I also include in water are electrolytes. You need to make sure you're getting electrolytes, either mixing in your water or some of the things you're consuming, whether it be in your gels or your food, that you're getting some replacement electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, some of those minerals that you need in your body to help keep you running. So let's try and roll some of the stuff all together in kind of a strategy or plan that you can follow or even build off of to fit your needs. Starting the week before, you want to start eating a balanced diet. Even though you're training, keep up that training diet, whatever you're doing for your training. And then a few days before the race, start adding a few carbs. Do not carb load. Let me repeat, do not carb load, especially not the night before. You do that, you're only going to feel bloated, weighed down, maybe have some stomach distress. So add a few carbs a few days before the race, but do not carb load. Also, the week before the race, keep up on your hydration. You should be drinking around 2 liters of water a day, more or less, depending on your needs and your body. But make sure you're keeping hydrated every day that week before. Now, the morning of the race, if time permits, 2 hours before the race, drink 2 or 3 cups of water. Now, if you don't have that kind of time, drink it the night before, but get some water in you either the night before or a couple hours before the race. So when you get up in the morning, you need to eat some breakfast. You burn up some of your glycogen overnight just from sleeping. You remember earlier I said you need 40 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour of running. Well, kind of target to get that first hour in carbohydrates before you go out and actually run. Now, that may be too much food for you in the morning. It is for me. I'm not going to eat 40 to 60 carbohydrate grams at breakfast. So what I'll do is eat maybe half that, or 25 to 30. And right before my run, I will take one of my SIS energy gels. And by the way, I have a review of those that I'll queue up here at the end of this video. You can take a look at it if you're interested. So I'll have 25 to 30 with breakfast and another 20 right before the run. And when you eat your breakfast, just don't eat carbs. Have some protein and fat also, some eggs, yogurt, cream cheese, peanut butter. I had some nuts this morning. That'll help stabilize your blood sugar a little bit and give you some longer lasting energy. Now, as I said earlier, I use Tailwind Endurance or Hammer Heat. I will mix that up the morning of the race. I typically use a ratio of about 1 scoop per half liter of water. That's roughly 25 grams of carbohydrates, and half liter water is around 17 ounces. So that works out to about 1.5 grams of carbs per ounce of water. So 1 scoop per half liter, that would be 2 scoops per liter. If you're going to carry 1.5 liters of water, you put in 3 scoops. Again, that works out to about 1.5 grams of carbohydrates per ounce of water. Now, I tend to do my drinking and eating using timers on my phone. I do not rely on my body to tell me when. You don't want to either, because by the time you get thirsty or hungry, you're behind the curve. You're going to be trying to play catch up, and you're going to be higher risk for hitting the wall. So I usually use a 15-minute timer, and every 15 minutes I will take 4 sips or 4 gulps out of my water bladder. So in those 4 sips, I've already pre-measured. I know I'm getting about 6 ounces of water, and you can measure it yourself. Just take some sips and spit them out into a measuring cup and calculate how many ounces you're getting. So I get about 6 ounces of water, which equates to about 24 ounces an hour, and I'll adjust that more or less depending on the conditions and how I'm feeling. But I also know, since there's 1.5 grams of carbs in each ounce, I'm getting about 9 carb grams in every 15 minutes. So that works out to around 35 to 40 grams per hour. And this is not an exact thing, and these are round numbers, just give you an idea. So 35 to 40 carbs an hour, which is a little on the low side. I may probably need more like 50 to 60 per hour. So I will maybe once an hour have one of my Science and Sports isotonic energy gels. That'll add another 20. Maybe once an hour, maybe a little longer, a little less, depending on how I'm feeling. But I rely more on my Tailwind or my Heat for that basic frequent feeding of my body, and supplement it with an energy gel as needed. Now, if I wanted to eliminate my energy gels altogether, I could add more Tailwind or Heat to my bladder. Instead of adding 2 scoops per liter, I added 3 scoops. The math on that figures out to around 2 carbohydrate grams per ounce of water. So I would be getting more like 45 to 50 grams an hour if I was doing my 15-minute thing of 4 sips. So those are some of the kind of ideas you can play around with, at least the powders and the energy gels during your run. Now, if you eat food like energy bars, gels, jelly sandwiches, you need to be a little differently. You probably don't want to eat every 15 minutes. You may want to eat every 30 minutes. So you could like drink every 15 minutes and eat something every 30. Again, shooting for, say, every 30 minutes, getting 20 to 30 grams of carbohydrates. You can do every 15 if that's convenient for you, but I don't think that's quite necessary with food. You're going to be getting that in your stomach. Again, with the food, make sure you're drinking that water, because you need to digest that, dissolve it, and get that energy into your bloodstream. So that's all well and good, but what happens if you still hit the wall? You know, that can happen. A lot of things could roll into that, depending on the intensity of the run and so forth. So I think you need to be prepared for that contingency and have some things with you. First off, you're hitting the wall, you're tired, stop running, maybe start walking. And the best thing is to ingest some high glycemic index food. You know what glycemic index is? That's a measure of how quickly a food will raise your blood sugar. Sugar itself is considered 100. That's the thing that's going to quickly raise your blood sugar. So have some high sugar foods with you, whether it's an energy gel or fruit roll-ups or some gummies of some sort. Get those into you, drink water so it gets digested, start getting that blood sugar up. Keep walking or slow jogging and keep feeding yourself until you start feeling your energy come back, and carry on with your plan. So these things I've shared with you as far as race week, race day, race strategy are not firm guidelines. They're kind of strategies you can build off. Adjust it. Maybe you don't want to drink every 15 minutes. Maybe you want to drink every 20, in which case maybe take 5 sips instead of 4, whatever. Adjust that to fit your needs. The key is get regular hydration, regular energy, and have some things on you to be prepared in case you still hit the wall. And go into the race well rested. Hey, thanks again for watching. I really appreciate it. Hope you learned something today. Happy running out there, and we'll talk to you next time.